Hi, it's Monday. It's 3 o'clock. Welcome to Together Unlocked. I'm Jew Gosling, also known as the artist Jew 90. With me in my East London studio is the artist and documenter Julie Newman. And moving their camera around and up and down at the other end of our long wheeled virtual sofa in the West Midlands, I'm just going to pop them off for a minute while they sort themselves out. So I'm going to give you a little bit of audio description and then we'll be bringing the West Midlands back in. I'm Jew Gosling. I've got short, newly hennaed, newly attacked with the dog's clippers red hair. I've got black plastic glasses, black wrist braces, silver coloured jewellery, and a blue flecked long sleeved t shirt. Behind us, we have the Together 2012 banner. Together 2012 has been running since 2012, but as a separate organisation since 2013. We're led by disabled artists based in the East London borough of Newham, which was the main London 2012 host borough. We're creating the Paralympic cultural legacy, and on our banner behind us are pictures of all the different art forms we cover, from poetry and spoken word, drama, dance, visual art, street art, carnival art, live music, and much, much more. We also have our ballet bear Anna. Anna was last week's competitor in our Clockwork Paralympics. You'll have to wait till Wednesday to hear more about that and to see this week's Clockwork Paralympics. But Anna was last week's winning bear and is taking part in the International Virtual Bear Hunt. So, Julie, who are you? What do you look like?
I'm Julie. I'm the chair of Together 2012. I'm looking a bit disreputable this week, I have to confess. Uh, my hair continues to grow and grow and grow without shape or form. It is gold and silver. I,
She's had numerous opportunities, dear viewer, for me to take the dog clippers to it, but she just keeps growing it
I,
instead.
I think it has definite shape and form. It just isn't the shape and form that you want.
I think that's possibly correct. I have tremendous sympathy for Josh.
Well, let's just finish with this fashion description before we go over to the West Midlands, where we will not be taking fashion tips.
I have dark rimmed glasses. I'm currently wearing a sort of khaki sweatshirt. Um, and that's it, really. That's me.
I say you're doing a David Hamilton.
Who's David Hamilton?
David,
Now you've left us more baffled, so I'm going to come back to that one. But our West Midlands presenters who will now introduce themselves and do some audio description.
yeah. So I'll start. Yes. Hi, I'm Robin Surgeon. I am director at Together 2012, and yeah, the camera the on is just very strange. Our preview shot looks nothing like the live one, so sorry, and I'll have to move it again very slightly in a minute. So yes, I am up here at the other end of the very long sofa which we possess. Loads of room for guests is what I say. We can have guests in Leicester, we can have guests in Milton Keynes, even North London, dare I say it.
Scotland, Wales, and the world, which I believe we've started doing. But before I continue to interrupt, what do you look like?
So today I am looking. I have very clean, white, styled hair with my boy band look. Honestly,
Mm.
um, although the the glasses spoil the image. Obviously, I'm very clean shaven today, although slightly red in the face. And I am wearing a black long sleeved hoodie. And if I do move the camera, I have a logo on it, which is like it looks like an anthasan, the A that you put in at when you write email addresses, but it's a stylized logo for Angry Fish Training.
And that's one of your
And
companies.
that is, yes, that's one of my many attempts at making money.
Oh, you know what they would say about artists? Those 10 freelance jobs really, really help. So, Josh, who are you? What do you look like?
Well, I'm Josh Surgeoner. I'm also one of the hosts of Together Unlocked, and I am a PhD student and becoming more and more artistic as the days tick by, I think, much to Ju's happiness, I think, that she's It's only taken her 20 years, but she's finally got me to embrace my artistic side. I have equally unshaped hair as Julie. We're together in growing a mop, I think is probably the best description of our hair. But mine is blonde. I have a trimmed
Sorry, I think it's ginger.
the beard's ginger, the hair is blonde. And I am wearing a kind of metallic silvery grey sweatshirt. And then on the left shoulder, kind of diagonally, it says TYR, which is TIA, which is a swimming company.
My hair's blonde as well.
Or used to be. Yes, we're very much the different ages of lockdown. We have the shielding students, we have the middle-aged people deluded that we're still cool, isn't that right, Robin? And
A
we have
cat.
wisdom.
And a cat.
Yes, and we've just been joined by one of the Together Tabbies. If you're interested in the animals that wander in and out of our programme absolutely at will, then on our main Together TV Unlocked menu on our website, you will find different pull-down menus, and one of them is about Together's animal hosts. This tabby is called Jinx. She's one of two tabbies living here at the moment, and there's two more tabbies at your house. But I wanted to pick you up on what you were saying, Josh, because it's a very good link to our next bit. I spent 18 months doing a residency as an artist at the National Institute of Medical Research in 2007, 2008. And that's what's now become the Francis Crick Institute, so the leading national institute. One of the conclusions I came to, apart from inventing the scientific model of disability, which we're not going to discuss at the moment, was that artists and scientists actually have loads in common, and much more so than artists and all sorts of other people in terms of professions. And I think it's because the imagination is just as important in science. You've got to be able to envisage life as being different before you can invent anything. And the other thing that it really takes is an awful lot of commitment. You know, you've got to be committed to that project through thick and thin, through all sorts of kind of obstacles, and through the very long term. So it actually takes very similar personalities. And the other thing that I found at the National Institute of Medical Research is, in order to illustrate their work, many of the scientists I was working with were actually better at things like Photoshop and animations and a whole range of creative software. So hopefully one of the things we're doing with this show is shattering some of those illusions that you've got to be one thing or the other. I know when I was at school, you actually sat in a different side of the porter cabin at lunchtime according to whether you were doing arts or science. But actually, I think we could have had very different little groups with more interesting results for
And I
everyone.
think,
Yeah, I was going to kind of follow on from what you were saying in terms of there is a lot of artistry in science, whether that's kind of being able to create doing the science, but also in kind of the communicating of it to people in terms of making really complicated, kind of slightly boring data accessible takes kind of that artistic design. But everyone always talks about STEM as kind of science, technology, engineering, and maths. But they've now moved to calling it STEAM. So it adds in an A for art or the arts or artistic. I'm not entirely sure what it is. And that was because they recognize the importance of the arts in science and engineering. One in terms of building stuff, but also, like you said, the inventiveness. If you walk into Mission Control in NASA and say who got into science because of Star Wars or Star Trek, everyone will put their hand up. And so yeah, there is definitely a lot more art in science than people realize, and science in art as well, I guess.
Yeah, and absolutely. So we encourage anyone who thinks they're a scientist to take up a little bit of art as well. As you can see, we're using cyber to draw in the scientists and reprogram them as artists. But that's just the kind of organisation we are. So on a Monday, one of our regular features is Update. And there's been so many changes over the last week that we decided to make it a little bit longer. So we're going to be talking about some of these issues till 3:30. However, do not despair. You're going to find out much more about our Join In From Home programme, our forthcoming Disability History Month festival, and we're talking about documentation with Julie Newman. But first, app date. Can I hear a dreadful app-related pun, as has become traditional?
It would appear that they've all apparated out of our brains.
I think it's also quite appropriate to have it today.
Josh?
What's app doc?
Thank you. Right. So, first of all, and I'm getting my briefing from the local authority. Thank you, London Borough of Newham. One of the things that I think a lot of people panicked about last week, because the information in the media was simply not there, apart from buried in the BBC report, is what happens if you're reliant on somebody else visiting you, either to provide some kind of care or some kind of support. And the good news is that you're still allowed to do that. What we think is really important is for people to understand this and to do it as safely as possible. Because if you're one of the people who's used to providing support, and many of us as disabled people are carers as well as care users, then it's important that that support continues, particularly when things are so restricted. I mean, you've been living under what are effectively now known as tier 2 restrictions for quite a long time in the West Midlands, haven't you? Which has really stopped anybody. And the critical rule is that you cannot have household visitors under tiers 2 or tier 3, but with this exception. So, I mean, do you know anybody who's been receiving informal care? Have you had any informal care visits?
Well, I mean, as a household, we have to. I suppose they're more formal, our carers, because they're either agency or people that we employ directly.
And that's always been allowed, hasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah. I was
we
just
have.
wondering whether there was anyone that fell into the kind of unpaid category.
Well, we have someone who does some shopping for us, in addition, but actually we have stopped them at the front door. I mean, as in when the weather was a bit warmer, we make a cup of tea and kind of put it outside so they could sit down on a deck chair and we could have a 3 meter apart plus conversation. But actually, no, we've kind of been as safe as we can. I mean, even though obviously, I've been going out coaching for 3 months, even that is still very much within a bubble. I mean, and thankfully, I think for a lot of people's mental health at the moment, that is not yet being closed down.
Although sports centres are closed in tier 3. So we know if you're watching in Liverpool and parts of the northwest that you're still not allowed to do that. I think that brings us to a point I really wanted to bring up at the beginning, which is that it's important to be safe. But it is important to receive the support you need. So, if you are going to have household visitors to give you that support, whether it's physical support like shopping, cleaning, bed making, sorting out your medication, or checking in on you because you feel too depressed to go out, do use masks. Now, I'm going to put some details up on our highlights and links page. Our highlights and links page for each show carries all of the videos we've shown and links to everything we've mentioned. But it is possible to get PPE for informal carers, at least in theory. We'll see how it works in practice. But for anybody watching locally, I have the email contact for that. But either way, wearing face coverings, if you've got somebody coming into the house in tier 2 or tier 3, I think is really sensible. And of course, you still do have the outside option. It's the one place that 2 people can meet, or 2 households with up to 6 people can meet for outdoor exercise. That's also really good for mental health. So if somebody's coming in to give you support, have a think about a socially distanced walk, different places you could go, whether that's an option rather than meeting inside with masks. But it is really important that you carry on receiving that care. The other services, and I'm going to talk about Newham, but we hope that most councils have also put these services into place, at least if you're in tier 2 or tier 3. London Borough of Newham have commissioned a service to help with things like emergency care planning and also, which of course is really important, maximising income through benefits, information and guidance. This organisation they've commissioned in Newham is called Carers First. And if you register with an organisation like Carers First, it's much easier to get a hold of an official letter confirming that you're a carer because, of course, one concern in tier 3 in particular is that people will be stopped or they'll be put off by providing care, and it's really important that care and support continue. So if you're a person providing care, whether that's to another disabled person, you're a non-disabled person, whoever you are, see if you can get a letter, get yourself registered. This is a good time to do it. We know most people providing informal care and support aren't registered with an organisation like Carers First. It really helps. It helps you get the support you need. It helps the information get through. It helps carers to get recognised. But have some kind of letter. It might be from the person you support, just saying, I really need this person's support. But that is available to you. And as I said, they also have access to PPE. Now, the other thing Newham wanted to really emphasize, but I'm sure is true everywhere, is the importance of emergency planning. I know I don't have an emergency plan, and I'm quite sure numbers of other people don't. And it isn't just for disabled people, but it's critical if you are a disabled person. If somebody is used to providing support for you and they become ill, is there a list of the support they give? Does your plan include your medication? It might be all sorts of different things for different people. It might be something really detailed about if you have to go into hospital, the arrangements you're going to make for your pets, anything you can think of. What we're not sure about is what you can actually do with an emergency plan. We're trying to find out if there's some kind of national place that you can put them. Currently, nobody can find out, which rather leads me to suppose that there isn't yet one. So, also think about if you were going to become ill, or the person you become too ill for the person you to look after somebody you care for, too ill to continue for yourself, who's the first person you would contact? And that might have to be a support service, it might be adult services, but try to work out who that person would be and then get them a copy of your emergency plan. Who wants to
I mean,
add something?
Can I just ask
I mean,
a question? Is it all right? Forgive me, Robin, if I ask a question about what Jude's just read out. I'm concerned about this Carers First. If somebody signs up for it, does that mean the council has access to them, or is it an informal relationship?
Right, I couldn't tell you that, but I think it's much more important that carers are registered, but obviously data protection applies.
Right.
So, it could be that, and again, it's going to be different in different local authorities, whether local authorities commission organisations to send out information on their behalf, whether they ask to share data. I really couldn't tell you, but I do think it's important. Like I say, in this day and age, you can always deregister in a couple of years' time. But at present, I think it's those sort of emergency, really, to me, kind of. I'm not somebody who likes to share my data, shall we say, but I think in these circumstances, it's really
Right.
important.
Thank you.
That's not to say that Amazon doesn't know every TV program I watch, everything I buy, yada, yada, yada. So it's a kind of a bit sort of shutting the stable door after the horse has bolted kind of thing as well. What did you want to say, Robin?
I mean, I think the idea of an emergency plan is a really good one, and it doesn't have to be this massive document. And I think we should reiterate that it might simply be, get me up, or it is a get up. There are tablets to be taken, maybe, and as you said, I think get that written now in conjunction with somebody that provides the care, because actually, carers are an active part of they're active in the relationship, and what you as the recipient of the care see as the process may be ever so slightly different, or the order that things are done that the carer does out of sight to be ready to provide the care and stuff like that. So obviously as the care receiver, you're still the principal within the relationship, but it is very much a shared document.
Yes, I think that's right. I mean, in theory, if you receive formal social care, you should already have a care plan. So your emergency plan, if you like, might be to get somebody else to liaise to make sure that care plan is put into place. But you might never have written down that, well, there are weeks where things get really bad. I can't get up. I stop eating because I lose my appetite, and my friend comes round and they do blah, blah, blah. And that could be your emergency care plan.
So in Birmingham, we have I mean, I'm assuming it's still there. Is something called the CERS, the Carers Emergency Response Service, I think it stands for. And they came and they did these massive kind of profile things with us that exist within them, but actually getting anything from them is very different. I think the one time that something had happened and we potentially needed somebody, it was like, oh no, we can't do that. Okay, what are you here for?
I
Would
I
be-
think that's a really important point. Again, services are theoretical and aspirational, but they're not always practical and available. An emergency plan, if you possibly can, should be about a friend or a relative who can step in, who can really take some responsibility and chase things up.
oh, absolutely. um and I can't, I'm trying to remember to exactly what it was. But it was just, I think something had happened and I was out and couldn't get home, and then they couldn't get in the house, and it's like, well, no, neither can we then. Oh, okay. So yeah.
Yes, I'm sure we could fill hours and hours and hours with experiences that lots of other people would
Well,
recognize as
I was
well.
gonna say, I suppose the point is that now actually is nailing down, what before you do need it is contact whoever is your care first or your CERS or your um agency, and know what can happen if your principal care or any, your care isn't able to be given, because the last thing we want is people, you know lying in bed and not being able to get out of it when they need the loo, or on the floor, or going hungry.
Yes, and I think it's really important to stress again that that can be for mental health reasons. I think many people don't always think of themselves as receiving care. It's so sort of stereotyped and stigmatized. We don't, we instead of saying care is a wonderful thing that is at the sort of heart of all of us as human beings, we don't celebrate it yet in that way. If a friend is giving you much needed moral support when you have a mental health crisis, yeah, that's a wonderful thing and it's care, and they're entitled to a carer's assessment, which is the other thing to stress. If you're listening to this thinking about emergency plans and thinking, I'm just not coping as a carer, every carer, whether or not the person they care for is entitled to services, that carer is entitled to a carer's assessment from the local authority. Again, much better to have that assessment while a crisis is approaching than when you're in the middle of one. So, if things are getting on top of you, contact the local authority for a carer's assessment. And if you don't know who's coordinating carers in your area, again, contact adult services at the local authority. We were also going to talk about creative apps and apps we've been using for independent living. This arose because some other government guidance that came out 2 weeks ago was about people's right to receive payments directly from the local authority to purchase their own care and to use them as flexibly as possible for equipment. I'm now trialing an Apple Watch and a Ring doorbell, and I would love to talk more about how they're working. But in fact, the Apple Watch woke up this morning deciding it had had too many attempts at a passcode and needed completely resetting, as I hadn't touched it. That was a bit of a surprise to me. When I try to reset it, it tells me it's out of power, but it's connected to the charger. And the Ring doorbell just hasn't been ringing. So I'm still concluding that yes, I urge everybody who's entitled to direct payments to get them and to be really flexible. some of the things that we found that have at least helped have been things like air purifiers, because we haven't got anybody to clean, dust busters because they're much easier to pick up than a Hoover, easy reaches in every room. There's things that really can help when somebody else isn't present. But so far, the Apple Watch, which is supposed to be my cognitive reminders, it's not reminding me how I can reset it. And it's certainly not explaining to me as somebody with cognitive problems what the hell has gone wrong. And as for the Ring doorbell, when there's somebody out, it shows me lots of photos of people passing by. But when I try to get it to go live at a critical moment when somebody's there, it can't. So not doing a grand job as a PA as yet. Is anybody else finding anything more positive with independent living apps, or shall we have a quick chat about something more creative?
I think you quite like your Apple Watch, don't you?
Well, yeah, I mean, I love Apple Watch.
But that was a birthday present because you're a sports person.
Yeah.
And I think absolutely, I'm a great believer that domestic technology repurposed for disabled people is going to be better than the kind of overinflated technology that's aimed directly at us. But I'm sure it makes a much better kind of hideously expensive sports watch than it does a social care substitute.
Yeah, I mean, the only social care it does, it reminds me every so often if I've sat still too long, it says, now you should go and roll around for 5 minutes. And it does recognize I'm a wheelchair user, and it tells me to roll around and not walk around, which is quite cool.
Well, I had personalised it, although apparently now I have to reset it. All of that data will be lost. But it seems to think that I'm walking kilometres and kilometres around the house. This is when it was working, and I'm not. I think you can't actually cope with the fact that some people shuffle. So it's estimating my stride at something quite extraordinary. But it was fun to look at. I thought, oh, I didn't know I was that active, and I thought, really, true, you're not. You're absolutely not. You're walking around at a snail's pace, kind of occasionally around a very small cottage. So, and sometimes you're using your wheelchair. You're not walking kilometres. So, yes, I'm sure it's great if you're a Paralympic swimmer and elite sports coach. But the jury is still out. So, last couple of minutes, Julie, have you been doing something fun and creative with an app?
Yeah, I've been using ArtRage and really enjoying it. I bought it years ago. I think it's something like $2.79, or it was years ago. It's probably not now. But it's an app for my iPad, and it's a drawing and painting app. And I've really, really enjoyed it over the last few days. I've rediscovered it because I wanted to do just a pencil drawing of something without actually using a pencil or a piece of paper. So obviously my iPad is there, so I had to go at it. And it's much easier to use than I remember it.
Now, that's funny because I've tried ArtRage and it's supposed to be one of the best drawing and painting programs there is, and I haven't got on with it, so I'm going to go back to it. But I mean, which drawing and painting app are you using apart from Photoshop, Josh?
I use something called Sketchpad, which is I don't know if it's a PC as well, but it's a kind of Mac one. So I have that on my laptop and my phone. So that's kind of that's the other one that I'm using, which is I think free, so considerably cheaper than a Photoshop package is. And because I'm a student, I can get it really cheap. Photoshop, that is. But yeah, no, I've been using Sketchpad, and it's great. It's got kind of it's a fairly simple design, and you can kind of set up symmetry, and it's got kind of rulers, and if you want to draw circles, you can just kind of drag to the appropriate size you want, put it wherever, like put it where you want to draw, and then wherever you then put right on the screen, it will do the circle kind of the outline of where you've put that circle. So you know, if you are trying to draw things, you don't then have to put your finger in the way of your circle to see where you go, and you can put it off somewhere else.
I think I'll leave it there, Josh, because you've probably lost everybody as well. possibly not as much as you've lost me. But what I'm going to suggest is both you and Julie do some screen recording and then a bit of a voiceover for next week, because I think Art Rage is fantastic. I'm just not very good at using it. Photoshop is a great program, particularly Elements, which is the cheap version, supposedly, comparatively the cheaper version. It's fantastic if you are doing a lot of photography, or photography is a big part of your visual arts practice. So I will just leave this spot here by reminding you that the Arts Council has project funds open, and as we've discussed before, something like Photoshop in the context of something you're creating is eligible for grant funding. So if there's expensive pieces of software and pieces of kit, the way I've always found it is that if it's cheaper to buy something than to rent something, then that's eligible as part of the project grant funding. So don't dismiss Photoshop. Think of it as part of a project. If you need it for something, then maybe that project can get funded. But next, what we'll do is put on a short video that will tell you more about our web-based Join In From Home program, of which this live stream is just a little part. Together 2012 is running a Join In From Home program from our website, together2012.org.uk. Click on the link at the top of the page, Join In From Home, to go straight to the main page, where you have a wide range of accessible, inclusive creative activities, mostly using things that you would already have at home. At the top of the page and throughout the pages, you will also see videos in British Sign Language to translate the site for deaf people. These videos can also be useful if you have difficulties reading and you simply want to hear more of the content. The Join In From Home programme is based on the activities that we would usually be running in East London. Dance Club usually meets on the fourth Monday of each month, and they create improvised masked dance for the screen. Here you can also see their very first film, where they simply made masks from paper plates, covered themselves with fabric, and just moved gently to the music. You can hear as well, there's a improvised soundtrack. So we're suggesting that you make a mask out of anything you can think of. It could be a cardboard box, a paper bag, a paper plate, as in here. Video yourself dancing in it and then share the video with us. We will show it on screen, and we will also enter it into the dance programme of our film festival, which we run every December. If you're temporarily or permanently chair-based, there's also a warm-up you can do here, created by our associate wheelchair dance company Folk in Motion, and that focuses on relaxing your upper body and improving your breathing. The Photographers and Filmmakers Club usually meets on the second Monday of each month. We're inviting you to make a video at home with the theme of home and share it with us. You can use a phone or a camera, make any kind of film you wish, including drama, documentary, dance, animation, artist films, comedy, and they'll be eligible for a CAT award at our December Film Festival. You can also watch with us from home. In addition to Together 2012 TV with Together Unlocked and other live streams, we have the Together Disability Film Festival highlights. Each year we run the International Together Disability Film Festival in Stratford, bringing together a wide range of films by disabled filmmakers, as well as films about disability issues and disabled people. We always publish the programmes online with links to the films that are freely available, so we invite you to revisit our recent film festivals from the comfort of your own home, and also to send us reviews of those films. And finally, you can sit back, relax and enjoy videos of past live performances, artist talks and creative workshops that we've produced in the past here. So, for example, from past festivals, we have documentation and films of creative dance workshops, street art performances, dances that the dance club have created, dance performances, and of course, we're continuing to add new activities on a regular basis. Great. And I should say, before I go any further, that our film festival is still open for entries, but only till the end of the month. And this year it's going to be different in two ways. Number one, it's going to be wholly digital. It's always been partly digital. But number two, it's not just going to be restricted to films from the last 18 months. If you made a film, so it's, I should say first, any film about disability or any film by a disabled filmmaker. Those are the criteria. You can find more information on our website, www.together2012.org.uk, and I'm just putting that up at the bottom of the screen now. We are welcoming any entries, however old. So it might be films that have been made since 2012, but for whatever reason weren't submitted, or it may be even older films. We're also going to be inviting some of the filmmakers from past film festivals to rescreen selected movies, because for obvious reasons, many people have had their films stopped halfway through and have not been able to restart them. So the films that we're getting in that are new are unsurprisingly made by single filmmakers or were finished previously. I think it's going to be great, actually. We launched our CAT Awards for the first time last year, and we're going to be giving retrospective CAT Awards to the filmmakers from all of the past festivals. So it's going to be a really outstanding festival, and we're also going to have a program of those retrospective winners and also last year's winners, because of course they all were shown in different programs, so the programming is going to be different too. The main festival program is now up on our website, and I'm going to put a film on next from our associate drama company, Act Up Newham. They're going to be reporting between now and their performance in November about how their production, I Am Tony, is coming along. And if you remember that from anybody watching regularly, that's a film they're making with collaborators in Chile.
Tony's coming.
Hi, Tony.
Hi, Tony.
Hi, Tony.
Hi,
Hi, Tony.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome to Act Up. Oh, well, I mean, I've been struggling during lockdown, and it's been quite hard, but I'm starting to go through it. You know, I'm getting back to work, start working with young people.
Hey, Tony, you to be a song of our next film.
And we are going to ask you some questions so you can introduce to everyone.
Tony, how old are you?
Oh, I'm 19 years old.
So, Tony, tell us where you are from.
Born Chile, moved London.
Hi, Tony. Have you been struggling financially over the lockdown?
I haven't been able to work during the lockdown, and the landlord is not happy with me, and he keep on asking me for money, but I will not be able to give it to him, but I don't have any nanny right now. So
When are you coming to see us, Tony?
No. The me stay at home to to see.
Time's up. We have to go.
oh no.
Bye.
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 Well, I have to say that looks incredibly interesting. What did you think, Julie?
It's a breath of fresh air. I really love ACT UP's work, and the creativity just blows me away every time I see something new.
Yes, I mean, they've got all sorts of very interesting exercises and techniques they use to devise the work. And I think that's, without knowing much about it, I think that's also one of them where people are creating, literally creating the character by drawing the character and painting the character and asking the character questions and giving it answers. I was actually very impressed by Stera Plurger, who usually signs, but also people don't realise is fluent in English and Dutch, because Stera only arrived in the UK as a teenager, so she was already fluent in spoken and English and Dutch. But it's just easier for her to communicate in sign. But I think people often look at people with learning difficulties and don't realise just how able they are in many different ways. But yes, I thought it was very funny and entertaining. What did you think, guys?
I just, it's always really engaging. I mean, how they do, and in fact, I was going to mention myself that it's really nice to hear Stera's voice, because you don't usually, and so therefore there is that impression that maybe she doesn't speak. And I just the interplay is very good. It and it's not, it's accessible to everybody as well. There's nobody who's watching that or listening when we get to descriptive side of it, that it isn't accessible to.
Yes, and it's something, of course, that because everybody in the company has got their own access needs. I mean, we're so proud of them as an associate drama company. We have our next profile of an artist from the company coming up for Black History Month on Wednesday. I'm not 100% sure who that is. I think it might be Pritesh Patel. But one of the things that I was saying to Hannah Facey, as the company coordinator who does so much work to produce this for us, is and then I've forgotten it again.
Well, just while you remember, I was going to say I was talking this morning with the people who are involved with Commonwealth Games and the cultural affairs that will go on with that, and they know of ACT UP, so that go and they're mainstream arts producers in Birmingham.
Brilliant.
And I said, oh, we work with ACT UP, and he's like, yep, know them, that's kind of cool, really.
Yes, and I've remembered what I was going to say, I hope, which was that one of the things that the profiles have given us is that opportunity to see them on stage. And however creative and wonderful the Zoom productions have been every week since lockdown, seeing what they can do on stage, I think, takes it up to a whole new level. And I'm sure long before there's a live audience, they will be back in the same space, socially distanced and rehearsing, but it's going to be a very long winter before then. I mean, Julie, you're the documentation specialist. What's your take on the way they've documented work?
I'm quite interested in that last piece because there's a gestalt to it. And I've never, ever associated gestalt to production.
And could you just explain what you mean by gestalt?
Well, it's where you, how can I explain it?
I don't know, because I don't know what it means.
Well, it only just occurred to me as I was watching it. Gestalt as a form of therapy is where you separate yourself out and you speak to yourself. So you can use two chairs, for example. Not so easy for us, but
Isn't it? Yeah, but isn't it? You use it to, your mind fills in the spaces to allow understanding to take place.
You could say that. I mean, I'm talking about really the practicality of it. It's about putting yourself in two different positions and having an interaction between those two positions and yourself in those two positions. So, say for example, I was jolly cross at I don't know. We could say a politician. This is just completely off the top of my head. But if I take the place of the politician and respond to the questions and the criticisms that I have, I may well have a greater understanding of that politician's perspective. Unfortunately, they won't have any understanding whatsoever of mine, but it expands my awareness, it expands my insights.
And that's so interesting because I come at it, you know, Julie's got a social psychology degree and is a qualified counsellor and mental health worker alongside her artwork. You know, I haven't, but I've known that technique for developing characters in
Yes.
theatre, but didn't realise it came from psychology. Although I think an awful lot of techniques from theatre and psychology do cross over, don't they?
Well, they certainly do. I mean, if I look back on some of the exercises, because a large part of my degree was actually doing experiments. So it was science based as well as arts based. If I look at some of the experiments that we did in relation to interactions and so on and so forth, I see the same sort of experiments or the same basis for the exercises in a lot of dramatic workshops. I documented for Grey Eye on one of their courses at the London Metropolitan University for about 3 or 4 months. So I was in there practically every day, and I was in a wonderful position. Yeah, it was the greatest thing that could have happened to me in terms of my understanding of the arts. I saw the exercises. I was able to not participate, but sit on the edge of all of their learning. And Liz Carr was one of the students at the time. She came out of it, as a tremendous performer. She was a good performer before she went in, because I've known Liz for some years. But to be able to see how individual artists develop using exercises is really exciting and really interesting.
I was just going to say the Ring doorbell is telling me there's somebody at the door. About 4 minutes after the assistance dogs started shouting. What it doesn't allow me to do live on air is actually tell the person to just follow the instructions on the gate, which seem to be so impossible, and just leave the package by the bin. This is one of the reasons we use this kind of microphone, because between street noise, sirens, helicopters, dogs and delivery people, you really wouldn't want to be hearing the rest of
Can
the
I just
environment.
finish?
But yes, sorry, Julie, I just wanted to explain why this strange noise had
strange noise in
started,
the
but also
background,
to
it's
go
very-
back to it.
Indeed. But one of the things I think is really important, and which I try to stress every time I have an opportunity to talk about documentation, is the process by which somebody gets to an end place, or even a place halfway down the road. It doesn't happen by magic. Maybe it does, but in the main, it doesn't for the rest of us mortals. And I think one of the things which is so liberating in relation to disability arts is that on the main, that process is an open one. But what we're missing, and I don't want us to miss the opportunities, particularly during this year, is the opportunity to document that, and then to use that and share that with other people. I know a lot of arts grants do require documentation, and sometimes people remember and sometimes they don't, and when they remember they tend to put in a couple of snapshots.
But I don't think the British are very good at documentation. I remember having a grant which I'd put in something really minor, like 200 quid for videotapes. This was a long time ago, for documentation, because Julie was doing it for nothing. And I had a message to say I didn't have to use the money for documentation. And yet my very first international gig, which was at Kiasma Museum in Finland in 99, it was videoed, it was audio recorded, it was this, it was that. And wherever I've been in Europe, documentation has been absolutely standard. So have much longer workshops, so you're used to doing something like 45 minutes here and you discover it's 5 hours as soon as you cross the channel. So they do take their culture a lot more seriously. The other thing I just wanted to pick up before we come towards the end of the show and relax with Awa, very kind of appropriately, I think, this Monday, was the way that artists can also use psychotherapy learning to, if you like, protect themselves. I think it's very difficult at the moment when the only visitors we can have if we're in half the country can only have visitors if we're in a bubble, which is something else we should talk about another program, or definitely need support on an ongoing basis. But the creative process can be quite a dangerous one emotionally. John O'Donoghue, who I've known for many years, kind of was very open about the fact that when he'd finished his memoir, he had the first breakdown that he'd had in decades. And I think it's a really difficult time. So if you're working on characterization, and particularly things like autobiography, then I would also say, as part of the documentation, be aware of the process. And if the process is becoming dangerous, then just draw back a little bit, have a pause, then think about how you can do it more safely, how you can get some support. Maybe it's just not the project to be doing at the moment, but it is really important, I think.
Yeah,
Nodding for anybody who needs audio description.
I mean, I think it's true though. When you particularly, if you're being very introspective, and examining your own thoughts as ways of developing characters, or scenarios, or even just simply poetry, you are in danger of unearthing things that you've hidden away in, compartmentalized inside the big storage cabinet in your skull. I did a project at the end of last year with, I can't believe his name's gone out of my head. Oh, Alan, our friend, writer. Come on, Sutherland. Sorry, Alan. Called Electric Bodies. I don't know if you have seen it yet, but he released a book, which is a series of biographies written as poems, having interviewed various people, including myself, Matt Fraser, Catherine Arignello, off the top of my head. And that's really, really interesting how I was able to talk about things, some of which are quite painful, but almost in a third person perspective, because you're talking to somebody and a microphone, and then how it's come back is really cool. So actually, if you haven't got it, Electric Bodies by Alan Sutherland is a pretty fine piece of work.
And we're very much hoping to have Alan not only as a guest on the show, but also as a guest during our festival at the Survivors Lockdown Lounge special. We'll tell you more about that on Wednesday when it's all things pop-up poetry. We also have our Clockwork Paralympics to see whose teddy bear of the new teddy bear competitors will be victorious this week. We have Josh with his sports and gaming reports and much, much more. In the meantime, we're going to finish, as has become customary on a Monday, with Relax with Awa. Awa, you will have seen on the Act Up Newham video. She's a young disabled artist who's recently set up her own yoga channel. And we're going to do the last few minutes of her yoga from Saturday, which is relaxation. Monday is a difficult day for many people, and particularly difficult at the moment. So relax, be kind to yourself, and stay creative, stay home, and stay well.
See you Wednesday.
Did you want to say any goodbye, Judy?
It'd be yeah. I was desperately trying to remember what the theme was for this week's poetry. But I will put it up on the highlights page.
Yes, if you'd like to join in with the Pop-Up Poetry Club on Wednesday morning, we will indeed pop that up on the highlights and links page. The recording of this show should be up by 7. The captions take a little bit longer to process, and all of the information and videos we've shown and the links will be on that page as well.
So first, we are going to take a deep in and out. In and out. Now, I want you to imagine that you're in your favorite place, just by yourself. And you're in front of a sea. Now the water is a yellow water, a peaceful water. And you are relaxed, you are calm, and you got your worries in one hand, worries, and you just throw them into the ocean. So as you're throwing them, you're watching them landing into the ocean. And you are calm, you are relaxed, you are so relaxed that you decide to go for a walk. So you're going for a walk, just you by yourself. No one is around you. You're going for a walk. Then you stop. You stop. And you see something very familiar to you, but you don't know what it is. Oh, yes! It's the special flower. It's the special flower. So you pick it up, it in your hand, and it already knows your name. It knows your age, where you live. It knows everything about you. So it's in your hand. So you take it for a walk around the island. As you take it for a walk, it starts to rain very heavily, but it's not cold water, it's hot water, like a waterfall. So you're standing there with the special flower in one hand, and the water is coming down on you, and you're feeling relaxed, calm, and you just stand there in the middle of the rainforest with the water coming down. You don't want this to end. It really special to you. This world, I know that it's in your head, that it's your calming world. The world where you just calm and relax, get away from all of the issues in life, and you just calm and you're relaxed. You're not angry. You're not upset. You're not none of that. You're very calm, calm,